So obviously, thanks for having me. It's great to be involved in something like this, and I hope all the coaches are doing well. For me, as an elite athlete, it was obviously growing. I started my internship or scholarship at Wimbledon, so the style of sort of play and the style of coaching was probably a little bit different to some of the other clubs. But again, for us, it was very much, again, the club and the had a history and a way of playing. So we almost had to kind of fit into that. So even down to the recruitment of the players that came in, had to fit a certain criteria. So again, the style of coaching that we received up until a certain age where it started to change was very sort of direct and obviously very sort of command style, which again was fine for, we didn't have very many sessions at that time. So again, 1-2 sessions a week, really. So it was something that we just kind of had to, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. And you have to be able to try and do it. Otherwise, we'll find someone else who can. So
yeah,
it started to change later on when we had a different coach come in. So it obviously a lot depends on the coaches and their style. When we had a coach come in that used to play for Arsenal, so his approach and his style was sort of different. It was a lot of play through games rather than drills, where it just encouraged different types of movements and decision making.
and I think that sums up quite well, because on the coaching styles, we're talking about delivery style. So would you be a very autocratic coach? Would you give them choice, being like quite democratic? Here's what we're doing, but what would you say? How do you think it's kind of evolved? Because I try to be quite broad context today, because if you're working with someone in a school setting, someone who's in an academy setting, and someone who might be a complete beginner. Um, when you were coaching the academy ages, how do you think the delivery styles kind of evolved over time? Less command, but more kind of like open.
Yeah, I think certainly as I've started to coach, and again we try to, and we want players to be obviously good decision makers. So it's important that we kind of allow them ownership to learn through variety. So I wouldn't say sort of a one size fits all, but certainly just making sure that you kind of, because you've got such quite a big group and a diverse group in sort of, certainly in how they learn, their learning preferences are something that we have to consider. And as much as I was used to a command style when I was playing, I sort of saw the benefit later on in my career of sort of questions and answers and guide and discovery, etc. So for us, certainly it's important that they have variety, because they will learn at different rates and pick up things at different times.
Definitely. And yeah, I think hopefully that's kind of embedded kind of what we've done over the course of today in respect of different coaching styles and how we differentiate. How would you kind of slightly kind of going off tangent here? If a player kind of had that, thinking more on like the social psychological side, like if you had a player who wasn't quite feeling it today or wasn't quite 100%, like how would you engage with them to like to check how things are going, or how would you adapt the session if they weren't quite their usual selves?
Again, we try and have check-ins most mornings with the players, so they'll do like a wellness check-in, and that information is fed back to us via the sports scientists and medical team. So we kind of have an idea already. The important thing for us is certainly just the relationships with the players, so we can kind of, if they're not feeling up to it, which is again quite common, for them to just come and tell us or tell a member of staff. So you have an idea already, and we can kind of certainly working in the academy, you've got to be quite flexible anyway, because you can get a player dragged from here, there, and everywhere, or one might turn up late, or a couple were at school, so they join the session late. So you have to kind of sort of think on your feet at times, as much as you want to try and plan and have everything down to a T. You have to be ready for anything. So again, if a player wasn't quite up to it or wasn't performing well, maybe if there's a couple of coaches, one will maybe step out and speak to him or her, just try and find out what's going on. If it's something that they think they can overcome, then we might set them a smaller target while inside the session. If they feel that they can't contribute well enough at that moment in time, then it's no problem. Sit out, and we'll look at maybe doing something else with you, or working with the sports scientists. So again, we don't want to try and isolate anyone or make anyone feel uncomfortable. We want them to try and maximize their learning opportunities wherever possible, and if that means them stepping out and doing something else, then that's what it takes.
I think that's kind of summarized it really well, in the sense of kind of person first, in the sense of what works best for them, and actually what do they need to make sure they're performing. And I think that can apply into any context, in the sense of, if you're training 3 sessions a week with the academy, but you want to play with your friends, you want to still take part in PE at school, and it's kind of managing their workload and expectations. So I think that's a really good summary of how you would adapt at an elite level to the individual person's needs. So that kind of led nicely into the next questions. So for you, kind of broad experience, kind of coaching academy, now first team, what would a good coaching session look like to you, like by itself? But how might that become linked and progressive over time? So how would you build towards the bigger picture?
So the link for us, we're fortunate in the fact that our academy links quite nicely with our first team, and a lot of players that I've worked with in the academy are now in the first team. So for me, they still need development. A certain coaching session will always be the aim to try and teach, for them to try and get something out of it. Higher up as you go, or if you're going sort of first team, you might need to be a little bit more prescriptive in what you want and your outcomes, how you get there. Certainly, it's important for the players to experience different things so they can make better decisions on the pitch. We don't always want to give them the answers, which I think sometimes they want and they look towards, but it certainly exposing them to various games where they're able to make decisions, and if we need to stop it at any point, and making sure that we get our our breaks or our stops at the right moments. And again, we might make a decision beforehand to go, actually, we'll just let them play for a few minutes, and then we'll interject. But again, the interventions in what we do and how we do it are mostly planned out. If we feel that it's not getting quite to the level which we need, then of course we'll have discussions. But for me, it's about just having variety and just making sure that they're exposed. And again, it might look like chaos, and that's fine. I think some people get hung up on making it look like the prettiest session, and again, you've got to have thick skin sometimes when it's not looking so pretty, because the players sometimes get a little bit frustrated as well. But as long as they're making decisions, and then you can look at, then we have the luxury of reviewing training and going back over it and sitting and reviewing it with them as well. So that's another way that we look to try and make sure that we're not just coaching in the session, but we can coach sort of before and after as well.
I love that. There's kind of so much to take apart in respect of the variety of the sessions and how you can reflect on it as part of it to help plan for progressive sessions thereafter. The one thing I wanted to pick up on was variety. So the course we're doing is multi-skills, so it's a whole body development. So rather than overtraining, doing football 6, 7 days a week. That's going to higher the risk of injuries, and not have the biggest impact on kind of long-term athlete development. How often do you kind of mix training up from a elite level? Do you incorporate like a little tag game, or do you use the ball in hands as a part of it? Or how would you, from a long-term athlete development, how would you mix it up to make sure they're developing that whole body?
So yeah, that's normally down to the roles of the sports scientists when we're looking at different things. But we'll do like things like handball, of course. We'll play games of tag. Um, we'll do obviously plyometrics and things like that. It's all based around football because obviously we are in the football club, of course. But for us, we try and where we can just mix it up a little bit. Ordinarily, it's with the balls at feet. But when we do look to change it up, it will be like games of tag or bulldog and things like that, which again the players quite like.
Yeah.
So that would be it for us, really.
Oh, nice. So kind of one more final question, and if it's okay, I'll ask the guys in the chat if they had any questions themselves. So kind of working in the first team environment, you've got some players who are like 16, 17. You've got some players who are 28, 29, 30. How would you structure the session, bearing in mind you've got such a varying age range within that first team environment?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it depends on the day. Certainly leading up into the game for us, obviously the game is I wouldn't say the most important thing, but that's obviously we need to get results. So if we've got a free week, then we'll look to sort of try and keep everybody together, so everybody is working together. We understand that certain players have different influences over individuals as well, and certain people thrive in group sessions or single sessions. So it's important for us to just, like I said, try and keep everybody together. When you're working with different ages in certainly a first team environment, you kind of have to recognize who needs what, and that's not always easy because trying to get the experienced pro who's 29 years old to still work on his weaker foot is sometimes like, I'm not sure about this. But if you can do it in a way and you've got a good relationship with them, then you can go like, just come and do 4 or 5 passes with me on the bounce board, and this is the reason why. As long as there's a why, then you can kind of approach it in a different way. With the younger ones, it's slightly easier because they're still at that developmental stage. But again, it will just be, for me, it's just having a relationship and showing them if they've got a learning plan, which a lot of them will do coming from the academy. More often than not, they're still kind of working on that learning plan, even though they are up in the first team. So it's important to just go, right, these are still what you need to work on. As a centre half, it might just be heading or punching passes through lines. So again, you can kind of do it within the session. Or part of the session, or just take them away individually after, which always seems to work.
Definitely. And hopefully that kind of incorporates kind of throughout the day. We were speaking about what would an open session look like where everyone's all together. If you then take someone away and do an alternative activity, if they need that one time, I think explaining the why and how it can help them rather than just often go and do your own thing, it still has that benefit to help them. No, that's brilliant. I think from me, that was kind of a real invaluable insight. Guys, did anyone on the chat have any questions which they'd like to kind of put forward or ask? Please feel free just to come off mic. Go on, Louis.
Just from your experience as a football coach and also as a player, I just want to know from your career, what is your best experience that you've had? It could be anything. I'm just interested.
the best experience I had, well, as a young aspiring footballer, my first and foremost, it was making my debut, my first league debut. I was involved in a handful of games for Wimbledon. I didn't quite get on the pitch, but I made my league debut for Leyton Orient when I was 18 years old, and later on was obviously playing for Reading and scoring the goal to get us promoted to the Premier League, which obviously that's a long time ago. So imagine making my debut all those years ago. So yeah, those are my favourite experiences, and obviously the relationships that I've built over time as well, and certainly working with a couple of people now in Noel Hunt and Nigel Gibbs, who I worked with my time here before.
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Adam, you're next in line.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. What's the hardest part of being a coach, and what's the easiest part of being a coach?
I'm not sure there's any easy parts. No, listen, the easiest part is actually working with the players, and being out on the grass and, you know, setting sessions up and seeing them smile and enjoy it. The hardest part, I guess, is for us certainly is when you have to deal with players who are upset or frustrated for either not playing or injuries or personal issues, which always pop up, and sometimes you don't always have the answers. But we have specialists and people that we use who might be able to help. So again, those are sometimes the challenges that we have, and it's not always, you know, rainbows and unicorns. You know, there are people that struggle and have genuine issues. So again, seeing them go through that is something that we've got to try and help with, and having that holistic approach. Certainly in the academy, again, you see the inclusion now of player care and player safeguarding and sports psychologists. We have a lot of top professionals who understand and can help deal with those things.
Thank you ever so much.
Problem.
And Kimberly, you had your hand up for the next question.
So this is going to be perfect because I actually forgot what I was going to ask because I have ADHD, but I think that is probably my perfect lead in. So I was wondering how you adapt and work on those things, like those players that might have those other difficulties like neurodiversities or different learning styles, how that can affect your planning session and all those kind of things.
Yeah, so again, it's a great question. Again, so we have boys that come out of our school program, if they're in the school program, a full-time school program, as school under 16s, under 15s, etc. So we have a relationship with the school, so we can sit down. So when we're doing, you know, parents' evening or reviews, again, we'll sit down with the school and the teachers, and they'll alert us to maybe some learning sort of difficulties if they have, and obviously we try and link and understand their learning preferences. We understand that, you know, the players will learn at different rates, and so we try and connect where we can. We've got our own teachers in house, so we regularly meet and have discussions about the players. So we meet on a weekly basis, and we'll discuss, you know, the players at length. We'll come up with, again, how they're doing, how they've done, and then how we can help them move forward. And all these things come up, and in those meetings we'll include, you know, all the MDT staff and the teachers, the sports science, sports psychologists, the physio, player care, safeguarding, and anybody else who might impact that person's day or week during that time. So again, we try and look at it as a holistic approach, and those are some of the things that we take into consideration.
Thank you, that's very cool. Thanks.
Perfect. I think we've got time just for a couple more questions. So Corey, you had your hand up. What was your question?
Just a quick question, just as to what is maybe the best kind of like management style you received, or in terms of like them coaching you, and what did they do, or how did they relate to you? Was it, you see a lot about people like, giving my age away here, but someone like Harry Redknapp, who people have said had a lot of kind of like was great in terms of man management style. And then you look at some other managers who maybe, I think similar to your experience, maybe more kind of regimented in terms of just giving you commands and just, we're going to do this today, X, Y, Z. But yeah, what was kind of your favorite type of management style that you received, and has that had an impact now on you as a coach?
Yeah, a really good question, and I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of good managers. So I worked with Ian Dowie, who was a brilliant technical coach. So worked a lot on technique and really grooving good technical habits. I worked with Neil Warnock, who was a very good man manager. Not the one that would be out on the grass coaching, but more to get you geared up to really just go and, fight, bite, whatever it was. And then Brian McDermott, who was similar, who again, I probably played some of my best football under Brian McDermott here at Reading, and he wasn't really focused on what players couldn't do, but rather than what they could do, and he'd be really quite forceful in his positive reinforcement. He's like, I'm not bothered if you can't do that, because I know you can do this, and he just used to go like, go on, play, go and here's the team, this is how we want to set up. And go and do what you do. So he was someone who just sort of allowed us to go and express ourselves within a structure. I wouldn't say it was just free for all and go and do what you want. There was structure, there was clear objectives, but it was just, again, you're free to go and express yourself within that.
Cheers, thank you.
No problem.
Perfect. I think that's it from questions from the group, but that's been absolutely amazing to get your kind of like insight into A, your playing experiences, but B, from the coaching side of things as well, and how it's evolved over time. But I think what's kind of stuck out has always been very much holistic and kind of player first, in the sense of, you said under Brian McDermott, you had the freedom and expression to go and play within that structure. So here's the lesson, here's the objective, here's the training session, off we go and show me what you can do. I think that just underpins, like, the more you can create those environments, the better you're going to see people progress. But yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, thank you very much. We generally really appreciate your time this afternoon on it, and hopefully it's helped reinforce some of the discussion points today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and wish everybody all the best.